Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Have an amazing show for everybody today. What do we have, Krystal?
Indeed, we do. A lot of interesting things that are happening. So Kamala went on Fox News yesterday for a very contentious interview. We'll show you all the highlights of that. And Trump also was on Fox News for like a women's focused town hall. Very different vibes, I would say, between the two of them.
Certainly.
So we'll share some of that with you as well. Also have some new polling for you, and Harry Enton taking a close look at how well Kamala is doing with white women. Will they ultimately allow her to cruise into the White House? We will see. Biden's still very mad at Nancy Pelosi. Apparently, they still have not spoken since he dropped out of the race. Interesting revelations there, and some reported tension between the Kamala Harris and Joe Biden camps as well. We are finally, I think, going to take a look at the Florida real estate market today. We teased it the other day, and then we talked too much in some other segments, so we just pushed it to today. So we wanted to make sure we had time to do that one justice because it is a very interesting story. We also have our eyes, of course, on Israel and the Middle East. Former Israeli IDF, actually, someone who's high up in the IDF, issued a dire warning about the future of the state of Israel. So we want to bring you that as well as some other developments and a couple noteworthy CNN moments that we wanted to react to for you. So that one's always fun.
Yes, exactly. Always fun to get that into the show. Before we get to that, just thank you to everybody who has been signing up, premium subscription. So we're getting down to the wire here. As a reminder, you will get our exclusive election map and prediction before Election Day if you are a premium subscriber. All of our content with Logan, which is our election forecaster, as well as some stuff that we're going to tease on election night. So you're going to take advantage of that, breakingpoints.com, and you can become a premium sub. Now, as Krystal said, we had a very contentious, certainly, interview with Fox News. Bret Baier sat with Kamala Harris, roughly 28 minutes. A couple of different sections we wanted to go through here for everybody that shows some of the highlights for what you think you could get out of it, and more importantly, what maybe some swing people could have gotten out of it. First was on the section of immigration. Let's take a listen.
There's a lot of people that look back at what you said at 2019 when you first ran for president. And there have been changes, and you've talked about some of them. When it comes to immigration, you supported allowing immigrants in the country illegally to apply for driver's license, to qualify for free tuition at universities, to be enrolled in free health care. Do you still support those things?
Listen, that was 5 years ago, and I'm very clear that I will follow the law. I have made that statement over and over again, and as Vice President of the United States, that's exactly what I've done, not to mention before.
If that's the case, you chose a running mate, Tim Walz, governor of Minnesota, who signed those very things into state law. So do you support that?
We are very clear, and I am very clear, as is Tim Walz, that we must support and enforce federal law, and that is exactly what we will do.
That capped about, what, I would say 10 minutes or so on immigration.
He started with immigration and stayed there for a long time.
Yeah, it was. I would say it was about half, maybe, roughly, something like that, worth of the interview. So anyway, I mean, it's one of those where it was obvious that they were going into that. That's about the best that she's going to get. This whole, what did she say? It was like, well, that was 5 years ago. So that was certainly something I picked up on. I don't know. I mean, you and I have I usually, I think we come into this with the same frame, but this one, I'm mystified. You think she did very well, so you should make your case.
So let me say, first of all, to set up like the totality of the interview, Bret Baier, I don't think you would disagree, very aggressive in a way that he would never be with Trump. Not that he wouldn't ask Trump tough questions, I think he would. Yeah. But from the very first question, he's cutting her off, doesn't even let her finish a sentence. They're really going back and forth. We'll show you a moment later on where he really deceptively edited this Trump comments about enemy from within. So he clearly came into this thinking like Trump had called out Fox News for even doing this interview and put pressure on, obviously, Bret Baier in advance of like, you better really hold her feet to the fire. He's feeling the pressure of the Fox News audience. And it was very clear that his goal was like, I'm going to be aggressive and I'm going to try to really get her off balance. So, on like this question, there is no good answer here for her because she has changed her position
so dramatically
on any number of things. Yeah. And this is always going to be, the best she's come up with is like, my values haven't changed. Right. Here, I think she handles what is, again, effectively an impossible question for her to really be honest about, which the real answer is, politically in 2020, I was trying to run to the left of Bernie Sanders. Now, politically, I'm trying to like pivot and appeal to a general election audience. So my pandering strategies have changed. Like, that's the honest answer. She obviously can't give that answer.
Yeah.
So to just be like, listen, have I done any of that as vice president of the United States? No, I've enforced the law. That's what I'll do going forward. I think that's about the best you could do. My assessment of the overall interview is not that I like love every answer, because obviously I have many significant policy differences with Kamala Harris, in particular on immigration, and also they touched on Israel and Iran later on. Of course, the framing of
that was wild.
The framing of that from Brett Baier is basically like, why aren't you at war with Iran already? That's the framing of, that's not unique to Fox News. That was also the framing of the debate. So it's not that I love the substance of her answers on a number of these, but she handled an adversarial interview that was very aggressive and at times actively dishonest better than she handled The View ladies, which is kind of interesting, right? With Kamala, it's all about, does she take it seriously and did she prepare? That's why she did so well in the first debate against Joe Biden. That's why she did so well in the debate against Trump. She clearly took this interview very seriously and came prepared. And, I don't think there was, I know this is a little bit of a Rorschach test. The Trump people think she did terrible or whatever, but she never got thrown off balance. She never sputtered. She never got angry. She did not take the bait when multiple times Brett Baier was trying to get her to like trash Trump supporters. And so, yeah, I think in what was a difficult adversarial situation, overall she handled herself quite well. I'm
trying hard to color my bias on this one, but I don't see that at all. I mean, on the immigration answer, again, like, look, if you're I'm trying to put on the mind of a swing state voter, of somebody who is genuinely independent. So I'll start with what I thought she did well. And actually, the Fox people agreed. She got her licks in against Trump. Basically, every pivot was, but Trump, but Trump, but Trump. And we're going to show people some of the clips in a bit about Biden and the inability to address the mental acuity, but that's where she did kind of sputter, right? On, well, when did you first notice that Joe Biden's mental faculties had declined? Zero answer. In terms of immigration, I mean, I thought what was so weak about it was actually just not only the flip-flop of the dishonesty around the position, but in the beginning, too, there was a lot of trying to basically turn it around as if her administration had no power in this situation. So Brett had asked her a question, something along the lines of like, why have there been X million people illegally let into the country while you were vice president? And she dishonestly is like, well, in the first week of Congress, we presented a bill and they didn't pass the bill, and that's why it's the Republicans' fault. It's like, hold on a second. As Ryan laid out yesterday, that's an amnesty bill. But second, this ignores like all the executive action over that 3.5 years. So he kept trying to interrupt her to get at that. Now, I agree it was aggressive, but I mean, I don't have an issue with people interrupting politicians. People should interrupt people more. But the point is that on that in particular, for those first 10 minutes, the command and the spin just leaped out at me dramatically. Again, if you don't have a deep familiarity with amnesty bills and all that, like maybe that came across differently. She certainly stood her ground, I think, for what liberals could take away is like, yeah, she stood up to Brett Baier and to Fox News. There's no question. It was aggressive as hell, right? It really was like the lion's den. We should give politicians props. They should do more of that. So I don't want to totally discourage it, but I don't know how we could classify that as a good performance.
Well, here's what I would say. I mean, Trump is reportedly literally calling her retarded. Mm-hmm. So you can't look at this interview and be like, this person, she really held her own and was able to pivot. I thought Brett asked her a really challenging question, played the clip of her talking about transgender surgeries in prison. And she actually had a great response. She was like, number one, this happened under Trump, so why don't you ask him about that? And number two, he's spending $250 million on these ads. Do you really think this issue is like top of mind for Americans who are trying to pay their bills, et cetera? And again, that's a very, very challenging question for her to have to deal with, given how she's trying to like buck the too liberal label, et cetera, and her campaign strategy, which is to shift to the right. That's a very challenging question, and I thought that was about as good an answer as you could possibly give. Also, another highlight, in my opinion, from her was he was asking her like, okay, well, if Trump is so bad, why is half the country set to vote for him? She was like, it's a presidential election. It's not supposed to be easy. And I also thought that was a fantastic answer because, again, it's a challenging question. He wanted her to give him some clippable moment, like basically calling the Trump base deplorable or whatever.
He did say that.
Yeah.
Or he tried to get her to say
Yeah,
that.
he tried to get her to go down that path, and she just wouldn't do it at all. As you said, she kept pivoting back to Trump and her position on that. So, no, overall, I thought in a very challenging circumstance, she handled herself quite well and certainly exceeded my expectations of what she was even really capable in those circumstances. And so that's kind of my point is like, you know, the caricature, which has been at times really justly deserved of Kamala Harris, is that she can't think on her feet. If she's off the teleprompter, it's just a hot mess, you know, that she's word salad and all over the place. And we didn't see that in this exchange. She was quite capable and competent and, you know, proved that she deserved to be in that slot. And so when I think about swing voters and how they might process this, number one, I don't really think swing voters really are processing this, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not so sure about
Not
that.
really. I mean, I don't know. What's going to move people at this point? I have no idea, but it's probably more likely to be, you know, the podcast appearance with, or the appearance with Charlemagne or some of the more cultural figures than it is a Fox News interview. But some of this might break through. But if you're just looking at that in the vibe, you're like, oh, this is a capable person. Like, this is a strong person. This is a tough person. She's able to hold her own and push back. And so that's why I think that she did herself some favors in this interview. Not just with Democrats who were very happy with her performance, but with those potential swing voters as well.
Yeah, see, I didn't get the competent part at all. Again, I'm trying hard to color my bias here, but I didn't see it. It's let's play a wrong track answer, for example. We need to play more of this for people.
Madam
That
Vice President, more than
turning the
70% of people
That is
tell
about turning the
pollsters-
page on rhetoric that people are frankly exhausted of, Brett.
More than
People are
70% of people
exhausted.
tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But you're
people
the
have
lever of
become.
power.
But listen, over the last decade, it is clear to me, and certainly the Republicans who are on stage with me, the former chief of staff to the president, Donald Trump, former defense secretaries, national security advisor, and his vice president. One, that he is unfit to serve, that he is unstable, that he is dangerous, and that people are exhausted. Well,
If
people
that's the
are
case,
tired of that.
If that's the case, why is half the country supporting him? Why is he beating you in a lot of swing states? Why, if he's as bad as you say, that half of this country is now supporting this person who could be the 47th president of the United States? Why is that happening?
This is an election for president of the United States. It's not supposed to be easy.
I know, but
It's
if
not supposed to be. It is not supposed to be a
So
cakewalk
are they misguided,
for
the
anyone.
50%?
Listen,
Are they stupid? What
oh,
is
God,
it?
I would never say that about the American people. And in fact, if you listen to Donald Trump, if you watch any of his rallies, he's the one who tends to demean and belittle and diminish the American people. He's the one who talks about an enemy within, an enemy within, talking about the American people, suggesting he would turn the American military on the American people.
So I don't disagree with that last part, but on that wrong track question.
That was a skillful pivot.
Right, but on the wrong track, she was like, listen, you know, Trump has been around for 10 years. That's a terrible answer. Like, when I watched that live, I actually cringed she was like, oh, well, Trump has been around. You know what I'm talking about. He's like, I don't know what you're talking about, actually. And honestly, I don't know what she's talking about. Like, the idea that because Trump has been in politics for a decade, that you're not responsible for the direction of the country. And look, if we're being honest, was she running the country? Like, obviously, no. Okay?
Right.
She's the freaking vice president.
Right.
But she's also the one who doesn't want to put any real distance between herself and Joe Biden, which we're about to get into in a little bit. And so that answer, I thought it was her worst, because the 79% on wrong track, the perfect idea of like, well, don't you bear some responsibility for this? There's no answer but Trump. Now, I want to be clear. You might win based on that. As we see, Trump is a very polarizing figure, and he's certainly, they are running the same case that Hillary and Biden did Biden obviously a little bit more effectively, that Trump is a unique threat and all of that, and the Trump specter is bad. And, you know, she basically at every turn pivoted towards Donald Trump. But if you look at those swing state polls and you see the number one reasons that people are not supporting her, it's number one, I don't know what you're actually going to do. But two is I'm really unsatisfied with the direction of the country right now. And so for me, but Trump, I mean, that's not a competent answer. Like, that's not one that is well thought out. It is not one of a new vision. What is it? The closest that she got was just my presidency won't be a continuation of Joe Biden. That is not a strong declaration of change in what is empirically a change election. Now, change is interpreted very differently by very many people. So that's why I was like, if you're watching this, you're a swing state person. I don't know how you couldn't like how you could feel satisfied with an answer like that. Put the policy aside, just a pure like, hey, I want something to change, wrong track. And she's like, but Donald Trump, that doesn't seem to cut it.
Yeah, I disagree.
Oh.
So here's what I would say.
Yeah.
First of all, on the latter part that we more or less agree on.
Yeah, that's a good answer. You should never fall into the deplorable trap.
He's continually there trying to bait her into trashing Trump support. Even, would you call them misguided? And she's like, no. And then she skillfully pivots to, but the other guy, he's doing that all day long. And by the way, you don't have a whole lot to say about that. And we'll get to the very dishonest framing of the enemy within comments that he does in a moment. But what she's referring to, I think we all know, like, this is the Trump era. And the dissatisfaction with the state of the country certainly predates their time in office. In fact, I went back and looked it up. After January 6th, the right track number was at 11%.
Yeah, I remember that.
11%. So listen, do Joe Biden and Kamala Harris bear plenty of responsibility for people being dissatisfied? Of course they do. And given the fact that she has decided she is not really going to break with Biden on anything, including a disastrous policy in the Middle East where she 100% should break with Joe Biden. Given that that's the landscape that she's chosen, the political strategy that she's chosen, yeah, I think this is about as good as you can give. And it's not without some merit. Because, again, let's all be honest, this is not the Joe Biden era of politics that we're living in. It's the Donald Trump era of politics. He has defined all of the fault lines in American politics since he rode down that golden escalator. And that's how you end up with, you know, Liz Cheney on one side and, you know, RFK Jr. on the other. It's all just about, it's not about issues. It's just all about how you feel about this particular person. You know, it gets to like what Tim Walz talks about, this just very normie, like, wouldn't you like to go back to the Thanksgiving dinner table and not have it be ugly and vitriolic and just be able to have like normal discussions again? It's really Donald Trump who has defined the contours of this era. And so, yeah, I mean, is it kind of like politician Weasley to get out of any responsibility for? Of course it is. Like, of course. I would be dishonest if I didn't say that. But she's also not without a point that he really has been the central character defining the tenor, tone, and direction of politics. And it's part of what, to me, is so frustrating about this era, because it does make it impossible to really have policy discussions about the future of the country and, you know, really be able to vote based on those things, because everything just becomes this dividing line about your personal opinion in the person of Donald Trump. And it kind of shuts down all other forms of politics. So, you know, is it 100% honest? No, of course not. But does she have a point that he is the defining character of this era and that there are millions upon millions of people, including plenty of swing voters, and we'll get to this in the poll section, especially like, you know, suburban women are upset about abortion, all kinds of other things. Are there millions of voters who have put aside all kinds of other concerns or policy priorities to just like vote against Donald Trump because they want this era to be over and they don't want to quote unquote go back, as Kamala's been framing it? Yeah, there are. And so I do think that that speaks to a central concern that a lot of people have, in the sense that this era has been exhausting and they want to turn the page from it.
Yeah, on a vibe level, I totally understand what you're saying. But I mean, and I think a lot of the people who agree with that frame are already voting for her. So all the people who are on the fence about where to go, a lot of them do remember the Trump era fondly, and they don't remember the Biden years as good, in particular on inflation and elsewhere. Now, to your point about the whole enemy within thing, I agree, this was a pretty egregious mistake, or I don't know, but maybe possibly it was the way that they wanted to frame it. But she kept bringing up the enemy within comments. We covered them on our show on Tuesday previously. People can go back and watch it. But she brought that up repeatedly in the interview, just at the end there, as you saw. They decided to play a clip of Trump responding on that topic at a Fox News town hall, but not actually the comments themselves. And that was, in my opinion, this is the one that's going the most viral from what I've seen amongst the left. Yeah, go ahead.
And just a minor correction on that. So it's not just that they played his response in a town hall. They edited out the first part of his response where he doubled down in these comments and also said, what I mean by that is, Pelosi shift, et cetera. So they took the one portion of his comments that they could use to spin it as, see, he doesn't mean that. He's being totally reasonable. And left out the part from their own event where he was like, no, I mean the left.
I mean, in my opinion, that was stupid because you should just play the damn comment if you're going to play anything. In my opinion, I wouldn't have played anything. I would just let the lady talk because I think that that's one of those. But if you're going to play something, you shouldn't be editing this stuff down anyway. So let's take a listen to that.
Question to the former president today. Harris Faulkner had a town hall, and this is how he responded.
I heard about that. They were saying I was like threatening. I'm not threatening anybody. They're the ones doing the threatening. They do phony investigations. I've been investigated more than Alphonse Capone. He was the greatest gangster. No, it's true. No, but think of it. It's called weaponization of government. It's a terrible thing.
So,
Brett, I'm sorry, and with all due respect, that clip was not what he has been saying about the enemy within that he has repeated when he's speaking about the American people. That's not what you just showed.
Well, he was asked about that specific...
No, that's not what you just showed. In all fairness and respect to you...
That was the question that we asked him.
You didn't show that, and here's the bottom line. He has repeated it many times, and you and I both know that. And you and I both know that he has talked about turning the American military on the American people. He has talked about going after people who are engaged in peaceful protest. He has talked about locking people up because they disagree with him. This is a democracy. And in a democracy, the President of the United States, in the United States of America, should be willing to be able to handle criticism without saying he'd lock people up for doing it. And this is what is at stake, which is why you have someone like the former chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff saying what Mark Milley has said about Donald Trump being a threat to the United States of America.
So, yeah, there you go. Look, I agree it wasn't good. But, that's where you were saying previously she didn't get angry. She actually did kind of get angry. I mean, maybe it's effective or not, but it was clear like she was really roaring to go at it. Now, from what Brett said, Brett was like, I think she came into this. She wanted to score some good hits against Trump on Fox News. And he's like, I think she accomplished that. He was like, I also think that she came into this one to score some good hits against us. And like that clearly was the moment that they were looking for. From what I've seen, like on the liberal side, that's the one that's probably gone the most viral. I agree. I mean, I don't think it's a good look for Fox. They should just play the damn comments. I don't know why they did that.
Well, it also just makes it, like, it takes it out of the realm of debatable, whether it was like a fair and just tough interview or whether it was dishonest and partisan. Because we can show you what he actually said. So what they did is they clipped out the piece of his answer that they thought best served their ends to be like, he doesn't mean that. Come on, Donald Trump. He's just joking around. When at literally their same event, when he was actually asked that question, his first response was to double down and say, no, I do mean my political opponents. So let's take a listen in contrast to what he actually said in response so you can see just how dishonest it was.
They're using your words to say that you are not for crime and keeping particularly women safe in ads. I want to take a look at what you said and just tell me, let's watch it.
If we have to.
Yeah.
We have two enemies. We have the outside enemy, and then we have the enemy from within. And the enemy from within, in my opinion, is more dangerous than China, Russia, and all these countries, because if you have a smart president, he can handle them pretty easily. But the thing that's tougher to handle are these lunatics that we have inside, like Adam Schiff. I call him the enemy from within.
Mr. President, Kamala Harris has said you sounded unhinged and unchecked power is in our future. What do you say about that?
I thought it was a nice presentation. I wasn't unhinged. No, you know what they are? They're a party of sound bites. Somebody asked me, can they be brought together? You know, I never thought really, I wasn't thinking like they could, because they're very, very different. And it is the enemy from within, and they're very dangerous.
So anyway, there you go. It's like, that's what he actually said. And so clearly they knew she was going to bring that up, right? Because this has been, you know, for good reason, a major point they've been bringing up on the trail in recent days. And so in order to rebut it, they picked out this incredibly, like, just deceptive version of what he's been saying about this. So they can see, you know, he's fine. What are you talking about? There's nothing, no problem there. And, you know, that's where, like I said, it gave her an opportunity. Now, the thing is that Kamala Harris doesn't always rise to those opportunities. Like, this gave her a chance both to go against Donald Trump, to really articulate in a forceful way how disturbing and disgraceful she thinks those comments and others are, right? In a way that, look, we saw in 2022, these sorts of concerns about Donald Trump do animate a lot of voters and have been successful for Democrats in terms of electoral performance. And she gets a chance to push back on Fox News and, you know, call out Brett for not showing the full context here and not actually showing the comments that Trump made. So it's a good moment for her with the base. I also think it's a good moment for her with any potential swing voters. Yeah. Again, as I said before, how much does any of this matter? I don't know really. But anyway, I thought that was, like you said, Saagar, probably her strongest moment.
That was definitely her biggest
in
moment.
This interview.
Now to the weakest, I think, actually. Maybe, I don't know, most journalistically, the most consequential. Electorally, I'm not so sure. This was on Biden's mental acuity. I thought this was absolutely her worst answer of the night. Let's take a listen.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now he's unstable.
He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room. And he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
But you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him.
All right, yeah. I mean, I thought that was wild. It was like Joe Biden, what did he say? He has done what he has done for the American people. And then it was Joe Biden is not on the ballot, which frankly, you should be saying that a lot more. But there's no real distance. The only other line, I guess we didn't have it in there. It was maybe
what do you think would be the best answer for her here?
Well, it's a little bit difficult.
That's the thing.
Considering the amount of gaslighting that these people did, it's like, I don't really know. Because he has her dead to rights.
That's the problem is like there is no good answer really to this question, because if you admit like, yeah, I've been seeing this dude going downhill for a while, which is probably the honest answer, like you can't really say that, right? So I think it's going to be a very important question for history who knew what when with regard to Joe Biden.
Oh, I've been reading Bob Woodward's more recent book, and there's some wild stuff in there.
And I think, this tape will be entered into the annals of history in terms of, the level of spin and the level of gaslighting of the American people that occurred at the time. As a political matter, I don't know that there's really a better answer that she could give than, listen, it's not him on the ballot. He's fine, well, and good, and I saw him make great decisions, and it was all fine, and, I'm not admitting any wrongdoing here on my behalf that I was covering anything up. And Donald Trump is really where the focus is. And frankly, I actually thought that these questions would be more of a sticking point for the American people after the, switch from Biden to Kamala. But I actually think most people do feel the way she articulated, like, all right, that's the past. We're moving forward. It's me versus Donald Trump. So let's talk about that. So yeah, is it dishonest? Yeah, it's dishonest. Is it a great look for her to a tough question? Of course not. But I'm not sure that there was really a better answer on the table for her to give. At least I'm not smart enough to really come up with one, given the position she's staked out.
I was going to say, the answer is don't put yourself in that position. It's an insane one. I don't disagree, actually. Americans have an amazing capacity for temporary amnesia, both from the assassination attempt.
They were just so relieved he stepped aside.
People were just so happy
I think they were like, all right, he stepped aside. He did, at the end of the day, he did the thing he was supposed to do. Now, I would say it's unconscionable he's still even occupying the White House.
Yeah, exactly.
Given the fact that, we really, we're on the brink of a massive war in the Middle East. We really have no sense of who's actually making these decisions. I'm not sure whether it's better or worse for him to be making the decisions or Brett McGurk or these other, genocidal terrorists that apparently are cool with what we're doing in the Middle East. So, I think it's unconscionable that we're in that place. But I also have to acknowledge the political reality that most people are like, hell, he stepped aside, so we're moving forward.
Yeah, it's certainly possible. So there you go. That was the review of everything there. Hey, if you like that video, hit the like button or leave a comment below. It really helps get the show to more people.
And if you'd like to get the full show ad-free and in your inbox every morning, you can sign up at breakingpoints.com.
That's right. Get the full show, help support the future of independent media at breakingpoints.com.